Hi, it's Gwen, and welcome back to the Revolver Beatles channel. I hope you're all doing well. I just wanted to touch base on a few of the stories that have been cropping up in Beatles-related news over the last week. And I wanted to also give my feedback on my trip up to International Beatles Week in Liverpool. I have to say that my journey up to Liverpool was a really enjoyable one. It's always lovely to be up in the city. It seemed to be a really pretty reasonable attendance at the convention on Sunday. And the guest list was, I have to say, not quite as enticing as last year. We didn't seem to have quite as much of a draw when it came to guests, but they were pretty reasonable and entertaining at that. Guests included Mersey Beat legend Billy J. Kramer, also another Mersey Beat legend in Beryl Marsden, who went on to later in the evening to belt out some of her favourite tunes. There was Jeff Britton, drummer from Wings, who I have to say was first time I'd heard him speak, and was a very humble fellow actually, and I thought that he was rightfully proud of his contribution to the One Hand Clapping LP and film that came out a year or so back. Very interesting to get his take on his time at Wings, and good to see him looking so well. My particular favourite guest of the day was listening to BBC broadcaster and rock critic Stuart McCartney publicising his book with a little help from their friends. Now, this Stuart is always good value, as we learned from his contributions to the much missed Egg Pod presentations and live events. He was certainly on form at the convention on Sunday, and all of the guests benefited from having their interviewer being none other than Mark Lewison. It was great having Mark Lewison conducting the interviews up at the convention, providing his own insightful knowledge along the way. But I think he was keeping pretty tight-lipped on the subject of the release of Volume 2 of Tune In. We'll just have to keep on waiting, I guess. The merchandise flea market was well stocked as ever and had quite a lot of interest, particularly early in the day. Personally, I didn't buy too much this year, so managed to keep fairly reserved. But for me, the most important thing about Beatles Weekend and the convention in particular is just meeting up with friends. It was certainly great to meet up with friends old and new, and if I can give a special shout out to Kevin Waring, who back in the 80s used to run the Day Tripper fanzine, a competitor to Revolver at the time, but absolutely fabulous to meet Kevin at last after all these years, and many other friends as well. Always the highlight. Just going back to the subject of guests, it is evident at the Liverpool Convention, as has been evident at any convention, the Fest included, I guess, that the number of guests and the quality of guests is quite understandably being affected by the age of those who were in and around the Beatles of the time. And it is certainly a challenge, I guess, for anybody arranging a convention of any type, Beatles convention of any type, to attract guests. I think surely there will be a time, and it must be absolutely fast approaching, when organisers of Beatles conventions have to think about changing up formats to make sure that there is something really interesting for visitors to experience on a convention day. News coming out of Liverpool this week is from the University of Liverpool, which has announced it's set to bring back an MA course entitled The Beatles Heritage and Culture, looking at all things Beatles and the way it affected Liverpool and the surrounding region. Programme Director Dr. Holly Tesler said the course would enable people from all around the world to study Liverpool's unique Beatles environment, history and heritage from scholars and practitioners who are immersed in their work. Apparently there's also an optional course module which will allow students to visit and spend 2 weeks in the city, attending daily lectures and visiting Beatles sites. The part-time course, which launches in September 2026, will accept applications from October this year. Also announced by Ringo in the last couple of weeks is the fact that he is doing a follow-up to this, the Look Up album, working with the same team as worked on Look Up, with T-Bone Burnett at the helm. He's in the studio and is looking to release it early in the next year. Also in McCartney news this week is the news that Amazon MGM have acquired the rights to distribute and stream Man on the Run, which is an intimate featured documentary on Paul and his life following the breakup of the Beatles. The documentary is set to be streamed early in 2026 on the streaming platform and is a companion piece to the book Wings, the story of the band on the run, which is going to be released later in the year. The documentary is directed by Academy Award-winning director Morgan Neville, and Man on the Run is produced by Tremolo in association with MPL and Polygram Entertainment. Now, it's going to have a limited and select theatre release before it is actually released to streaming platforms on February the 25th. One of the great things about meeting up at the convention is being able to just have a good old chin wag. And certainly that's what I was able to do with some of my Beatle mates, with Pete and Phil and Rob and others during the course of the day. Now, obviously, one of the hot topics was the anthology release and also Power to the People, both controversial in many respects. And we thought it would be better to give full consideration to these topics and many others, and so we will be reconvening the Revolver Round Table in the next couple of weeks so we can discuss all these details in some depth. Please be sure to give the video a like, ring the notification bell and subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss a thing. So do make sure you stay tuned, because in the next couple of weeks we will have a Revolver Round Table and we will have another video looking at some of the grey market LPs that I've picked up over the last couple of months. So stay tuned. In the meantime, I look forward to seeing you next time, and bye for now.